One of the most iconic mascots for League of Legends, these fluffy freljordian snowballs were created by the development team in a few hours and quickly rose to prominence as one of the most adorable creatures known to Runeterra. The story of the poro is an insight into Riot's more light-hearted side, both in its development and throughout their numerous inclusions in Riot's releases. This fluffy-formed creature has found its way into the hearts of many players, and the Riot merchandising team. As mysterious as they are affectionate, poros are one of the more innocent creations that exist within the world of Runeterra. Today we're going to discuss, well, everything poros related. In terms of lore, as far as we know, poros have simply existed as a fauna of the freljord, and were discovered by players upon receiving the Howling Abyss map in League of Legends. The name poro comes from the Finnish word for reindeer, and was originally a placeholder name for the file during its development by the Riot team. In classic Riot fashion, there was an oversight within this where a player on the public beta environment discovered the poro and identified the creature through its file name as a poro. As a result, the placeholder ended up becoming the final name for the poros. Since then, it has been speculated, and Riot have been asked where these creatures came from, but alas, we are yet to find our answer. Perhaps they were created with Runeterra like many of its other creatures, a simple and plain existence of surviving the freljord. Perhaps the true origin of the biscuit-eating monsters is too powerful for the community to know. Maybe Riot just hasn't thought of it yet. All in all, we have just about no clue on the true origin of poros. Overall, while the history of poros is unclear, they have a prevalent presence throughout Runeterra as they are featured in a range of locations with different adaptations. Throughout Runeterra, there lie stories of notable poros. Adventurous and curious in their ongoings, the tales of poros are spread throughout a range of Runeterra's locations. Many factions are represented by a figurehead or leader, and the poros are no exception of this. The Poro King acts as the leader of the fluffy faction, and while only being mentioned throughout the main universe of League of Legends, has made an appearance in the Legend of the Poro King game mode. Known as a friend of Braum, the mighty old longhorn is a poro of renowned strength. Well, in comparison to other poros. When the Poro King was attacked by a wild claw, a six-limbed, saber-toothed creature of the wild, a battle of defense ensued where Longhorn lost one of his eyes during the combat. Fortunately, he now has an eye patch and is one of the few poros seen able to wield weapons or use tools. When the village of Avarosa, one of the Three Sisters, was raided and overwhelmed, there appeared a new defender. Known as the Heart of the Fluffed, there are stories of a poro that helped Avarosa. Gradually, poros appeared one by one until the hold was full of them. Amongst the more adventurous poros is the Plucky Poro. I have literally no idea how he got to Demacia from the freljord, but good for him. Revealed in Legends of Runeterra, the card text describes the adventurous poro with endurance and courage, but smaller than the rest. Personally, I hope that he makes the Vanguard and gets a name to go with the title. Despite being known for truth, valor, and innocence, there stands out a mischievous character known as the Plunder Poro. Gangplank has noted that his picture has been on the bounty board for longer than most, and describes him as a greedy, ruthless devil that won't let anyone or anything stand in his way. There's also a tinge of bitterness in the note where Gangplank admits that the plundering poro is cute. Deep in the entangled spaces of Runeterra, The aspect of twilight releases something new into the world. As we see a portal opening and welcoming this winged poro to Runeterra, there lies a simple memo to pair with its arrival. In space, no one can hear you squeak. I'm actually pretty happy with how much poros are featured in odd ways throughout League of Legends. Riot seems to have done a good job at providing some additional content regarding poros, without going overboard and turning them into the equivalent of the minions for franchising. A friend of the fluff, Braum is well known for his friendship with the poros. We're not entirely sure how he encountered them, or on what terms he ended up becoming an ally, but it can be safe to assume from the trials of the Poro that Braum was somewhere within the freljord, doing what he does when he bumped into the creatures. Trials of the Poro is a video posted by Riot Games that was released to tease at Braum's champion, and is a short animation featuring a Poro who's found themselves in the midst of a battle on the freljord. During this scene, they are seen to be running and attempting to flee the combat, only to be indirectly targeted by a hail of arrows. Braum is introduced at this moment, saving the Poro from becoming a pincushion and firmly embedding himself in the community as a good guy. Honestly, I dread to think how dark League of Legends could have become had it not been for Braum at that moment. There are a few interactions Braum has that are unique to his champion surrounding Poros. The most notable being that when feeding a Poro snack, they end up growing a mustache like Braum. This is affected a little bit further in terms of the skin that Braum has equipped, with different skins providing slightly altered mustaches for the creatures. Speaking of Poro snacks, Braum gets 2 instead of 1 from the start of the game, a nice touch from the devs to nod towards his friendship with the fluff. Overall, Braum seems to be the closest champion to the creatures, and this is probably a result of his good nature and protective actions. Now, being a small fluffy creature inhabiting an icy tundra, one may have the morbid curiosity to ask themselves, do people eat them? And the answer is, well, someone tried. During an Ask Riot session, we received a short story of what happens if you were to try eat a poro. As you slip the squishy pastel meat into your mouth, your mind floods with every imaginable color. Magenta, indigo, seafoam, chartreuse. With each juicy gnash of your teeth, a different flavor overwhelms your palate. Cotton candy, choke cherry, salted sea bass, toasted coconut. You swallow the tender morsel, and your throat tickles as it slides down your gullet. You get the feeling like you have to sneeze, but can't, as you pinch another bite from the plate, eager in anticipation of all the colors and flavors it will unlock. You feel a tiny itch ripple in your stomach. You can't help but cough, a little at first, then a lot. Sprays of fluff and fur erupt from your mouth like confetti. The itch in your stomach grows into a sharp, stabbing pain, like something tiny is trying to beat down the door of your innards with fists made of knives. Your guts swell and stretch as you cry out to your gods for mercy, for death, for anything that could bring an end to the blinding pain. Through your tears, you watch as 2 pointed horns rip through your skin's membrane, thrashing and mighty like a bull through a matador's cape. A basketball-shaped creature struts from your gaping stomach, slick and sticky with your blood, then plumes its fur in one swift puff. Blood splatters across your face. Your shaking eyes finally behold the creature in all its splendor, standing soft and sweet as a sunlit dandelion atop your retching, soon-to-be corpse. It unfurls its big pink tongue and licks your pallid cheek. That's the last thing you see. Or so the story goes. So yeah, not a lot of people try it anymore. What? Okay, so I just had to say that is a real piece of riot lore. Surprisingly intense for such a small creature, it seems that they have quite a strong defense against being consumed. That, or someone in Runeterra made an urban legend to prevent people from trying to eat poros. Either way, people aren't eating poros in Runeterra, so we can all rest easy in the knowledge that the freljordian fluff is not on the food chain. Azir, the Emperor of Shurima, has a specific voice line in Legends of Runeterra when interacting with Echo that suggests that poros did not exist within Azir's lifetime. Obviously, this is something we're not going to look too heavily into, because without overcomplicating this interaction, it breaks down to one of two primary answers.
Your emperor has learned of poros.
Well, yeah, wait. You didn't have poros way back when?
So, the first answer could be that poros didn't exist in the time that Azir was alive, and means that potentially there was some event that caused the inception of poros within Runeterra. This answer is a bit of a stretch because it's entirely possible that the answer is actually the second option. Option 2 is that the Howling Abyss and the Freljord were just places that Azir never visited, and as such he never had a chance to see them. This would probably make more sense, as poros existing as wildlife of the freljord is easier to digest than a key event in their timeline that created them. So, potentially, poros didn't exist when Azir was alive, but just as likely is the possibility that Azir just never visited the freljord. Overall, it's the only hint we've gotten so far regarding the inception of poros in Runeterra. So here's hoping that one day Riot gives us a bit more of an answer as to where the fluff originates from. Because there's a lot of random information surrounding poros that's not in-depth enough to discuss in detail as its own chapter, I've put the pieces that I couldn't fit into a chapter here. Poros are equal parts truth, valor, and innocence. Thematically, they are associated with unexpected strength, strength in numbers, camaraderie, friendship, and love. The color that best describes poros is very light blue, like freljordian snow. A group of poros is called a fluffed, and they look like this. The sad poro features one of the most lonely artworks for poros, but don't worry, upon seeing another poro they become the jubilant poro. Even Mordekaiser, the Emperor of Death, seems to have a soft spot for the freljord inhabitant. Sejuani features a Poro Rider skin, in which she also receives an additional biscuit, like Braum does when playing on ARAM. The Summoner rune of Biscuit of Total Delivery actually gives a Poro snack as well at the 2-minute mark, meaning that a dedicated team could all take Biscuit in order to feed as many Poros as possible. I have no way to explain this or confirm it as hard canon, but when Poros are fed enough in-game, they explode into more Poros. The idea they just explode into existence from other Poros was kind of funny, even if it's not the case. The Howling Abyss had been constructed, but the development team didn't want the map to seem cold and unforgiving. To do this, they wanted to add fauna to the bridge so that it felt less barren. In a few hours, the small creatures had been created by the development team, but now needed a name. In a rush, the Finnish word for reindeer was chosen, and poros were released onto the public beta environment. After being initially spotted by a player who identified the game files, the name of Poro became permanent and the community almost immediately shared a positive response for these small freljordian creatures. Since then, it's only been more and more content to the fluffed, with Poros becoming quickly featured in niche artworks, splashed around in events where possible, and given their own event in the form of the Legend of the Poro King. They're possibly one of my favorite additions from Riot Games because of two things. The first is that they are simply great in the design and application thematically, but the second has to be that Riot Games hasn't overdone it. Look, okay, this may just be me, but in a world where the minions became such a merchandise figurehead that it basically made the Despicable Me franchise into a potentially despicable merchandising line, it can be almost too easy to see when an audience appreciates something and run it into the ground. Poros aren't a mascot that I find boring or excessive, but they aren't just left in the corner after release and never spoken of again. They hold a prominent and relevant position throughout content without overstepping the lines of a small fluffy creature. While it may not be the most difficult thing to create and design a cute mascot that players will appreciate, it's a completely different thing to not run away with the success of that. Yes, they may have quite a few merchandising products for the fluffy creatures, but honestly, I think quite a few people wanted them, and it's not been excessive. The Poros are one of the more well-handled mascots by Riot Games, and that's something I'm happy for. So there we have it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up button and consider subscribing if you're interested in the content. I stream occasionally on Twitch, and you can find my links down below. Take care. What? That's not a color. Chartreuse? Chartreuse? The Poros are the mysterious thing that makes my microphone pop whenever I say them. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Please work. Just please. Because if my microphone doesn't work, I'm gonna cry. Just please work.